Hello and welcome to Check for Traps. I'm Aaron,
And I'm Josh.
and today we're talking about Parasite, that film that everyone's now seen. And
Everyone on Earth.
Indeed, and the world has changed since it came out. we are recording post-lockdown because we finally have enough time to actually record about it.
Little did we know, walking out of Parasite, which was itself an emotional enough experience, that we would not be going to the cinema again for some time.
Indeed, that would have been quite a revelation. Neither did I know that Boris Johnson was going to nationalise the trains. Jesus Christ.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, no, circumstantially, the Tory party is turning into a kind of Labour party.
Indeed.
And I'm saying it's because of Parasite.
It's definitely because of Parasite. He watched it, he was like, my god.
This is fucked. This situation's whole fucked. He called up the cabinet. He said, alright, I've got a Korean movie for you to watch.
I've now seen this twice. You saw it with me, like you said, just before the cinemas shut down forever.
Just before the markets collapsed.
Brief Check for Traps announcement on that. We will still be recording, but as no one's going to be making new stuff for a little while, we're going to go back in time and catch up on all the shit we probably should have released and didn't. I mean, yeah, Josh, what did you think? Just a quick, did you enjoy? I remember you having quite a visceral reaction to it, like I did.
Well, yeah, I thought it was a very good movie. I thought it was deeply emotionally striking. I've thought a lot about it since. I think that if I were to criticise one aspect of it, I think that the thing is that I really liked every aspect of the movie. To be a contrarian, but I swear not for being a contrarian's sake, I would say that even though I really enjoyed the farcical first half and the horrifying second half, I am not convinced, and I have kind of looked up as much as I could on this, but I'm not convinced that the fact that the first half was farcical and then there was a massive tonal shift into kind of like the horrible reality of it all, I'm not actually sure, for me personally, if that elevated the message much more for me. I think that the message worked either way. I think that the tonal shift was, in the microcosm, it was very effective, but yeah, I don't think that it being all fun and games for half of it and then it being so horrible actually made a whole lot of sense. But I think that the first farcical half was very, very funny and also made its points very well, and then the second total horror movie part of it was, again, extremely effective at conveying its message and extremely unsettling for an extremely long period of time. And I think I said to you that it was a movie that I never fully knew exactly where I was in relation to how much longer it had left, but that never ever felt like a problem, in as much as, I mean, you know, a part of you wants tense scenes to end and another part of you wants them to continue because of the effect it's having on you. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so yeah. What's your proposed solution then to the half? Should they be two separate films, or did you?
I don't have a proposed solution at all, because it's such a unique piece, and the two halves of it are so unique that there's nothing I could compare it back to. And I also think that both of the halves are excellent. I just happen to think that if I look at it objectively, that creative decision isn't one that I can fathom, even though it's good to watch. And like I say, both halves make their points well. I don't see what John Woo's intention was in having half of it farce, half of it horror.
I think it's probably because he realised he couldn't sustain 2 hours of horror and didn't want to make 2 hours of farce.
Yeah. Well, there you go. No, yeah, maybe the answer is that simple. But I mean, I have to stress again that the farce was so brilliantly farcical and the horror was so brilliantly horrifying that it's not really much of a criticism as much as it is, you know, when you enjoy something this much and it has the wide appeal that this has and the success it has, it's good to just have a little autopsy on it. And I thought all of the players were fantastic. All of the actors were brilliant. I mean, obviously Mr. Kim was my favourite. I think he's really, really wonderful. And his plight I felt more acutely than I think the rest of them, even though all of the plights were very, very well drawn.
No, definitely. I think he really, and again, I think it's because his is more subtle than some of them. Like, especially more so than, say, like the mothers or the sons. I think the daughter and Mr. Kim have the most interesting plight, quite understated.
Tell me about you in this film, Aaron. I mean, I know that we've spoken about this frequently, but so give me your quick capsule review, and then we'll get into some more of it.
Yeah, I think it's very I love it. I think it's really, really great. I've been really enjoying the discourse around it. I've been quite enjoying a lot of people not understanding things about it. And like but equally people's reactions to this are so varied and interesting. I think it's a really fascinating Best Picture win, and that it won as much as it did. Yeah, it's brilliant. Watching it the second time was really weird actually, because obviously so much of it is based on tension, like you said, and I think so much of it is sustained horror, but obviously that's not there as much when you know what's going to happen. Though I will say it's just as affecting. In a way, like you have to remind yourself, you know how it ends almost. A lot of the things in this film, I think it does really well, is it layers the tension through like 100 different little things, many of which will never come up again, but you don't care that they never come up again because at the time they seem really important, and that's a really good way to do it. I think it helps create like a really like complex scenario that is still very easily understood and resolved. I think there's loads of like little things, like even just down to like when she's like sweeping the glass into or the trash into all the drawers and stuff was the one that stood up for me, and I was like, well, that's going to be a problem, but obviously it isn't because of how the plot then moves. It's the least of their problems. Really good sense of I guess sort of like key fundamentals of film really help feed into the tension of this film.
I think that in the problem kind of section of the movie you're referring to, I think that what's so brilliant about it looking backwards is that it could have, like you say, they could have been found out in 1,000 ways, and you are right, all of those ways were set up, but the unexpected thing that happened was that they got out of that. It was their return to the situation later that kind of delivered the hammer blow, the thematic hammer blow. And I did in the spoilers in the garden party scene, which was obscene, when the man from underground, like the ghost, and I loved that ghost scene, that was terrifying, when he runs out and then him and the family are just fighting each other while all of these unknowing people are kind of standing around amidst the chaos, but the people doing damage to each other, it's not, at least at the very beginning of it, you would think the people who were on the side of against the people who are kind of the agents of their oppression. Instead, it's just the people being oppressed killing each other.
Yep.
Which I thought was, a brilliant. I mean, I spoke to you about it, but I thought that was a really perfect, and I mean perfect, way of summarising the ideology that the movie was kind of promoting, and I thought that was great. To the point where even though when the super rich bougie guy, when he got shanked up by Mr. Kim, I liked seeing that expressed by Mr. Kim. But I did also think that the fact that the situation was so slanted in their favour that they could only really do damage to each other was also a very, very poignant way for the scene to go. It was all amazing.
Yeah.
They could the thing that you were saying, the thing about this movie was that it kept setting up ways where it could have gone, and if it had gone that way, it would have been great as well. But it proceeded entirely to the beat of its own drum, and I have enormous respect for that. I do actually think that it was I do think it was a lot better than Snowpiercer, because I think that this was just a more succinct image, just a rich, wealthy household in which so much misery and strife and plotting and is going on inside it, completely under their noses and under their feet and literally under their tables and under their foundations, unbeknownst to them, was genius.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I agree with you. I think the lack of class solidarity in this film is fantastic and really tragic. Even just down to like the smaller characters you see as well, like the two pizza workers, the way they fuck over the driver and the maid and stuff, like there's it's a constant sort of like diving for scraps sort of thing that they could have not easily, but when this situation could be overcome. But again, I think that's really encapsulated by the mother's line about niceness and how rich people can afford to be nice. I think that's, and again, like they've no longer have the capacity to be nice because of the situation they've been put in, because they're so obsessed with survival, which is something the rich people don't need to think about. I think for me, that's sort of like my takeaway doctrine from this film. That's why if anyone asked me what it's about, I'd say it was that. I think
that is an excellent summary. I think that is the takeaway thing from it, and I think that you've hit it on the head a lot better than maybe a lot of people have. Although I'm still pleased with its popularity. That thing that you mentioned earlier, I'd just like to pick up on. It is funny how people seem confused why Mr. Kim killed the bougie business guy. That's not confusing at all.
So funny. I've seen loads of debates on Reddit and places like that about like why if you Google it, it's like Parasite ending ? It's like people is like, come on. I think it's all there. Like it's and again, like it might be a bit more nuanced than the young boy one. Like Mr. Kim doesn't have has a more unspoken relationship with the rich than he does, but it's still pretty fucking apparent.
Well, it's also he's the character, I think, in the whole thing who's maybe not necessarily because of the wife, but let's just say he's kind of the one who has broadly worked for the longest, and he's worked in this echelon for the longest. He makes frequent reference to that. And he's kind of the sunniest character for most of it until you see that his entire personal philosophy is just about suppressing feelings of despair because he doesn't see a way out, which, when you finally get to that penultimate scene in the garden, it's, well, of course, when you are pushing those things down as much as he was in comparison to, say, his wife, there is going to be an explosive reckoning, and I think that was an explosive reckoning. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I entirely agree. I think his wife was very openly bitter, and obviously he was incredibly inwardly bitter. And yeah, here's the difference. I think there's yeah, and it works really well. But I mean, again, like his wife is a horrible person. You know, I mean, she's. So I think that's another thing I really like about it is that, you know, it doesn't try and idolize the poor, and nor would I say that it demonizes them. Like, that's what's really refreshing about this. Like, yeah, she is a person who tries to, you know, is looking out for herself, and that detriment she undoes everything.
When the son was going down to the basement with the rock to kill the man who'd been hiding down there, I was just like, this is just horrible. You're going to beat him to death. And obviously, like, horrible it was supposed to be. So congratulations for him for conveying this in the intended way. But it's just like, you're going to beat him to death with a rock. You're going to beat a man to death with a giant rock. You know, it couldn't be more explicit. But it's like, well, I have to. That's a problem that needs to be solved. And it's like, oh my god. It's not like he'd had it good up until that point. Do you know what I mean? He'd had to be in that. I mean, I don't want to just get into the business of describing the plot, but he had to be tied up and slowly watch his wife die from concussion, not to mention, you know, the years of his life that had led up to that point. And yeah, it was extremely, extremely chilling. Congratulations.
No, definitely. I also really like that if he hadn't done that, everything would probably have been fine. That's a really nice bit of cosmic justice, is that, you know, his decision to try and, you know, use the rock to attain wealth as he saw it was actually what, you know, killed his sister and forced his father into hiding. Which again, I know people have called improbable. I quite like it. I think it works. It's nice and symbolic.
I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you got to suspend your disbelief at some point, don't you? And it's like, yeah, I guess. I mean, you've given long enough, and if you know, not giving up hope, and you know, he does have an obsession with that house. Quite liked that he would camp out and watch the light, especially as it's already been confirmed. Though he never sees the character communicate via light. I thought that was fun and interesting. It's only ever Mr. Kim who that gets explained to, but yeah, it's fine. It works.
The only super soft serve ice cream criticism I may have of that resolution isn't the fact that he goes into hiding. It's more that I would have also been really into. I mean, this wasn't really the movie he was making, so I appreciate why he made it more explicit. But if he had just had him, if the movie had just ended on the light blipping without having to show that Mr. Kim had gone into the garage and gone down there, I would have got all of that. And if you'd have just shown the blipping light and then the sun
writing something
state
out.
his intentions to, well, just blipping light and then sun sees that and then closes the film, sun stating his intentions that one day he's going to buy that house, I think it would have been maybe slightly more gratifying to have put those pieces together in my head. But again, even saying that makes me feel dirty because I just thought it was such a brilliant resolution to the movie anyway. And it, once again, of a series of great summaries of people's emotions and their like economic statuses, for it to end with him saying that he was going to buy the house and him fantasizing about that, and the fact that wasn't going to happen was great.
Yeah, definitely. I really like that. I find it really interesting, actually, so I agree with you that that's definitely not going to happen. But it is interesting because the director has said that he doesn't think it will happen, that the guy who plays the kid says he reckons it probably will, which I think is a funny take. I guess, you know, you have an investment in that character, you played him. But I do like that optimism. I also think he kind of missed the point slightly.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, just sort of cute. I thought it was nice that they had a difference of opinion about it.
To that lad's credit, maybe missing one of the points, but it could still, if that were the case, even though it's not, if that were the case, it could just be that he would then aspire to perpetuate the same kind of oppression. And I guess that if he did make enough money and then get into the house himself,
all he'd be was the asshole that his father tried to kill, or actually killed.
There you go. Yeah, that
definitely
would still be the perpetuation of the system. So to be fair to him, not completely wrong, but yeah, I think it's the pure and unadulterated capitalism, especially of South Korea, I don't think would permit him to have that kind of social mobility. Is
Yeah.
what I took away
No,
from it.
definitely. I mean, he couldn't manage it even, with the four of them. He's probably not going to be able to manage it with just the two of them, especially now he's like brain damaged with a criminal record.
There you go. That's the question I wanted to ask you.
Right.
Why did they get off?
I think they got off because they got away with probation, didn't they, or something? Or they
Yeah.
I think, like, if you think about their crimes are essentially like defrauding people. Like, neither of them killed someone.
Yeah.
And one of them was the recipient of a brutal attack, and the family at large had its sister/daughter murdered. So I imagine they were like, in light of everything that has occurred, your crimes are essentially, defraud and deception, which are comparatively minor. We can't find the husband, who is currently a fugitive.
I was just going to say, my problem is, Aaron, is that everything that I'm learning about South Korea, I'm learning through the prism of you and explicitly Marxist filmmaking. So I can't imagine a court, given the exposure I've had, a court in South Korea letting them off with probation. I imagine them sending them to like forced labour debtors prison.
Well, yeah, definitely. No, I can.
With butt plugs in.
I'm also, yeah. I was also surprised they got off so lightly when I first watched it. I mean, the honest answer is probably because it would be quite interesting to have it, or to end with them in prison. But I think, because I was thinking about it as well. Like, in Burning, wasn't there? Well, didn't the dad go to prison for some real bullshit reason?
Yeah. In Burning, it was obviously there was an issue, property violation of a neighbour, and I mean, the main reason was that he wasn't going to apologise.
Yeah, that was it.
Which was great. Burning was so good.
Burning was
so good.
Fucking brilliant. Yeah, I bet. Again, I think the implication is supposed to be that, and again, like, they were being, monitored. They were under probation. I mean, I think the thing is as well, like, what else can you do with them? I guess, because it's like, you can't. If you imprison them, they're a drain on the system. And I guess at this point, like, the one who did the most wrong cannot be found. But yeah, no, I do agree. It was a surprisingly lenient moment from the South Korean courts.
I have nothing cynical about it being picked for Best Picture. I know that me and you fuck around, especially a lot on this podcast, joking, using phrases like cultural Marxism and stuff. I do hope that it comes over that it's, broadly sarcastic. I think that maybe often we're just criticising the folly of people attempting to be woke, because that is in itself quite pernicious. But I think that the Academy trying to be woke, they would have, pitched a ball and landed still inside of, the Anglosphere. But the fact that they ended up landing on a South Korean movie that is so unrelentingly hard left wing is to their credit, and I'm not going to interrogate it.
A combination of a very well told story, and just clearly resonating with people, and again, like, resonating with a group of people you wouldn't expect, like you said, the Academy and lots of different film people. But I think it's really, like you said, I don't want to interrogate it too much. Maybe in the fullness of time we'll get a picture of why, and who knows, maybe next year it'll be business as usual. That we might be doing the virtual Oscars.
Yes,
that'd be good. Get then we can get like a cartoon character to host it or something. That'd be good. I don't know who yet. Maybe Bugs Bunny.
Maybe we can host it. Maybe enough people will die of the virus that we'll be next in line.
We'll be like, where are we in the Oscar hosting list? 2 million. Perfect. Surprisingly high.
Alright, I'm gonna get my gun. Get the sanity axe.
I actually don't really have too much more to say other than go watch it. If you haven't, for some reason at this point, watched it, everyone should watch it. Everyone should then watch it again.
It's wonderful. It's unique. It's original. I hope that all of these people continue to get loads of work. I think that South Korean media is, in my very limited experience, so please correct me if I'm wrong, is like paradoxically, considering like the economic attitudes of the area, is so refreshingly critical of the society that it comes from, and I just think that it's extraordinarily healthy. And I do think that movies, as we know, and as Zizek always tells us, that's like the ideological fucking injection, man. So I do think that they have the capacity to change things, especially, a story is a way to get into the heart and mind of a young person.
Definitely. I'd also largely agree with you. Like, I think even films that aren't directly about class, like Train to Busan is a great example that has a very strong class divide in its characters, even though that's not what it's about at all. I think that there, this current generation of people of filmmaking age, if you want to call them that, clearly zeroing in on topics that really matter to them. Perhaps it's just because the situation in South Korea is one that is very apparently not homegrown, and also is markedly not worse than say America, because a different kind of fucked up. and
Yes.
very more readily apparent kind of fucked up that it has such a. It's really good. I'm glad they're willing to discuss it, unlike say Japan, which is often very unwilling to cover it. I'm looking forward to more. I'm hoping this will create, presumably it will. I mean, all the fucking producers. I mean, you're already starting to see it with like Korean films appearing on Netflix and Amazon Prime and stuff. So presumably they'll be pouring money into that sort of thing as well now.
I mean, obviously, for people of our generation, we ended up attaching ourselves to a lot of Japanese media, but the films, the live-action films specifically being generated, I think one of the reasons that has kind of passed as far as cultural curiosity is that the contemporary ones, I don't really see a whole lot of. I don't really know. I don't. I mean, I don't want to overuse the word ideology, but as you say, they just seem to be kind of reticent to criticise themselves. I mean, when we read all of those,
very centrist, aren't they? I think is the issue.
When we read those Murakami novels, I mean, Murakami is like hated in Japan, and he was the closest thing I'd ever come to some Japanese media that kind of openly talked about the political situation, historic and otherwise. I mean, just the fact that they talked about Marxism in Norwegian Wood and the different kinds of leftists at Japanese universities was just completely new to me. So
yeah, definitely. And again, it's something that's been sort of almost like discouraged and wiped from the discourse to its detriment. So it makes that media all the poorer.
Well, large up South Korea.
Yeah,
and
big props. And
go see the movie Comrades.
Now everyone go back to your basement and hammer your light, your Morse code light. Tell Boris Johnson or Donald Trump or insert world leader here per region exactly, for respect, and hopefully Corona-san will be gone soon.
Alright, see you in a bit.
We've been checked for traps, live from the bunker.